Good morning everybody, so I'm Sheila Bell of Swann Systems, so I thought I'd start off and tell you where I've come from. So my parents were much older when I was born and actually lived through World War II, and I'm an only child, so they were determined that at some point that I would be on this earth without them, and unfortunately I got to my early 30s and that happened. So they made sure that I had some resilience, which I have definitely used in my business journey, and also made sure, so you will find me putting wallpaper up, painting, decorating, as well as doing cleaning, cooking and things like that. So I was given an all-round education as a child from very small. I went into nursing because I felt that was the way to go. I then found out, unfortunately, after my mother had died, that was something that she'd always wanted to do, and her father had banned her because that wasn't something that a gentle lady did in the 1920s. So I came out of that and started doing bookkeeping in about 1993. I had also done a course with somebody like me now who would explain PAYE and VAT and things in about the 1980s. And I ran an IT services company from 93 to 2002 where I learned how to do accounts, learned how small business owners worked, and did a lot of the hand holding and support and everything else, and started doing some training. So Swann Systems was hatched, so to speak, in 2002, and people ask me, well, is your surname Swann? No, I'm not a Swann, I'm a Bell, but my mother was a Swann. So the last person in the family was my grandfather, who ran a pharmacy in Payroll, and he was Herbert Swann. So we're keeping it in the family, and this is where we get things. So I just thought I'd just give you a little background of me. So this is me and my partner Adrian. We like having a laugh and a joke, as you can see, and then the top is my two sons, so one in the Navy and one's a Special Constable Sergeant, and then the other one, which maybe you can just see the umbrellas from a distance, we like to spend our time boating, and when you're not boating you're sat on the towpath being very sociable, sat in the sun. So that's an aim. So who are we? So Swann Systems, so we are the sort of the jam in the sandwich between the business owner and the accountant. So what does that actually mean? So we do accounting support, which we'll go through. We do traditional bookkeeping, payroll, we will do debt chasing, and also now we tend to do a lot more of, we just provide the software for business owners. So what does accounting support mean? It doesn't mean we come around with crutches and things like that. We will liaise with you if you have a board, if you have sort of like an overseeing company or anything else, or even go with your bankers that they want to know your financial information. You're not exactly sure what it is. You see so many people on the television programs, they ask them what their numbers are and they just crumple because they haven't got any idea. So we will actually stand in for you and actually produce the numbers and actually do the presentation for you on the day to the board or whatever it is and answer the board's questions. So we can actually take on board almost being like your financial director. We will also cross-reference on your accounts, your bank accounts. In the modern day and age, people use PayPal, Stripe directly from their website. When was the last time that you actually took the balance that's on your PayPal account or your Stripe account and check that that is actually what's on your accounting software? We've recently had a client where I'm looking at it and their PayPal was minus. PayPal doesn't do minuses, doesn't give you overdrafts. And it turns out that about 6 months ago, 3 transactions for whatever reason were never downloaded. So you have to check these things. Just because something happens automatically doesn't mean to say that it will always be 100%. You need to actually check and cross-reference these things. Also, we'll go through your customers. Who owes you money? How long have they owed you money for? You're not their banker. If they haven't got the money, it's not up to you for you to keep it for them till they've got some. So you need to keep on top, but we'll talk about debt chasing in a minute. We've also got, for your suppliers, how much do you owe and when do you owe it? Are you going to end up with a hole in your cash flow? Quite a few people have had somebody, or quite a few years ago, who did sort of like little building jobs, repair jobs, and of course got paid at the time. Very, very excited, got in with one of the big boys of fitting kitchens and bathrooms, and unfortunately their business went within 6 months, because suddenly from having money on the day, they were getting paid 90 days, 4 months later, and they had this huge hole in the cash flow that they hadn't planned for, and that was the downfall of their company. So you've got to think about these things. And when was the last time, if a supplier sent you a statement, that you actually cross-reference that the invoices you've got on your system matches that statement? Have you missed an invoice somewhere? People think that you just send an email, somebody will automatically get it, and then how many people you suddenly say somebody sent you something and you find it's in your junk file? Your invoices could be in somebody else's junk file. You always get that odd question or something that only happens once a year, and every year you're going, I can't remember how to do that. How did we do that last time? And we can talk through that, we can make a plan, it can go in your guide so you know when to come, how to deal with that specific situation. People will ask you for management accounts, and people don't know what management accounts are. Management account is your profit and loss and your balance sheet. And we can go through those, explain those, go through those on a regular basis, so you know. And when somebody says, what's your management reports, you go, fine, and you literally in 2 seconds you could have run the report and emailed it to them. It's so easy, it's not a scary thing. Also now, everything to do with the great HMRC is online. It's digital. You don't have pieces of paper anymore. So if you're not sure how to do, if you are self-employed, you need 2 government gateways. If you're a limited company, you probably need 3 government gateways. If these don't mean anything to you, then we can tell you what they are and what they do. So that just gives you a little idea of that is just what accounting support is. For accounting support, you can either have that on a monthly basis, 6-weekly basis, quarterly basis, depending on how busy you are, what you need to do. So, bookkeeping, piddly bits of paper. There aren't so many piddly bits of paper anymore because everything is online, everything is scanned in, but some people still struggle with it. Some people have dyslexia, dyscalculia, absolutely brilliant business people, but when it comes to pieces of paper and everything else, it just doesn't make any sense to them. Or people are so busy, it's much better that you do what you do and let somebody else do it for you. So you've got sales invoices, purchase invoices, the bank rec, the management reports. So you can choose which bits of that you want to do that you're happy with. We normally get the customers do the sales invoices. You want to raise your sales invoice and send it as soon as possible, because if you haven't sent the invoice, you can't get the money in. And that's the first most important thing. So we'll do that for you. You can email us paperwork, you can post us paperwork, or you can even come into the office and drop it off. Or we might come and collect it, depending on how near you are. So that just gives you an idea of like the traditional bookkeeping that we still do, but there's not so much of it because it's all automated. So this is why we're doing more of the accounting support. So payroll, I know not everybody likes having staff, but some people do. The main thing is that your staff want to be paid on time and paid correctly. If that's something that you feel is too much of an onus, then we can do that for you. So we do weekly payrolls, monthly payrolls. Some people do it through their online software. The online softwares like Xero and QuickBooks have their own payroll modules and Sage. Or it might be that you just want us to do it all. We've got our own online module. We do all the payroll. We'll send you an email. You log in and get your pay slips and everything else for your staff. All nice and easy, all done. We liaise with HMRC. We'll put all of your pension payments on. So everything is all done. You don't have to worry about it. So that gives you an idea, and we're just coming up to payroll year end now, so lots of P60s being produced. Debt chasing, it's all very difficult. If you have traditional like services or have been in business a long time, your customers in some way are like acquaintances stroke friends, and it's very difficult to ask a friend for money. And this is where a lot of businesses struggle. They've done lots of sales, but you've always got, oh, Joey is lovely, and we all know he'll pay. It might be 4 months, but we'll know he'll pay. And this is another thing of why should you be his bank account? So if you're not sure, then third party actually ringing up and saying, when's this invoice due? Have you actually got this invoice? There are many businesses that if you haven't got a purchase order number on that invoice, they won't pay it because they've got nothing to cross-reference it to, won't happen. So if you haven't, you have to play by their rules, especially some of the bigger businesses or anybody that's in the public sector. If you're doing anything with colleges or anything like that, they have their routine, they must have a purchase order. Sometimes they will want an invoice, so then they can get a purchase order. So you have to send them an invoice, wait for the purchase invoice purchaser number, put the number on and then send it to them again. And that is all a bit of hassle. But if you know, then you can deal with it. The other thing is that quite a lot of people, if you don't send them a statement, especially if you have lots of invoices for about the same amount of money, they just have a rule. If they haven't got a statement to cross-reference those invoices on, they will not pay. So it's one of those. You just have to know how people work, how other people's businesses function. You have to work around them. And that's maybe a quick phone call of a third party just to find out that we need a purchase order number, that they need a statement, or it might be a query, and you'll find that the debt chasing will pay for itself. And it takes the worry from you having to ask a friend, in inverted commas, for money. Software, so much software now. Which software is the right one for me? So many television adverts and everything else. So do you want Xero or QuickBooks or Sage, or will VT software as a very quick starter work for you? That's something we can go through and explain. If you've used a software before, use this. Just because somebody says use a different one, if it's the one that you know, use that one. So, but some of them are much better. Sage and QuickBooks will give you a lot more reports, especially QuickBooks is very good at splitting out if you've got different classes, departments, if you've got a group of people or you've got agents going out there and you want to know which each sales rep's done, the way of splitting out is much better. Xero is brilliant, it's very simple, but their reporting at the moment is not as, because it's a new kid on the block, they haven't got as many reports as the older softwares, but it is much, much easier to use. So it all depends what business you've got and whether you're trading with Europe and that sort of things, whether you're doing multi-currency. So we'll go through which software actually works for you. So if you want to know more, we can always have a chat, whether that be over a coffee or online. And that's me of Sheila's Swann Systems. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Yeah?
If you've got one set of software, could you have, theoretically, could you run like 2 businesses through this, or just one?
You have Xero and then you'll have 2 companies. So you'd have a company of inspirational labels A and then a company of inspirational labels B.
Okay. You can still run them through the one set of...
You just log into Xero and then you choose which company you want to go into.
When you're doing your accounting, helping with the account, do you ask the difficult questions like what's that subscription for? Because quite often we all sign up for something and then 3 years later you realise you've never used it.
Yeah. I tend to look at and go, why are you paying this direct debit? Because I've got to allocate it to something. What's this direct debit for? I don't know.
This bookkeeper told me that somebody signed up to a clip art 5 years later than you one piece of clip art and they're paid every month, and that's very expensive.
Yeah.
But we all do it on a personal life. You sign up for something and then forget you signed up. Particularly the ones that renew every year.
Yeah.
Automatically.
Yeah.
Without folding it out.
Yeah.
I've got one from an electric charging company. I've only used it once, and I've noticed it's come out twice there. What's it? I probably won't use it again for another 12 or 18 months, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that. It's keeping things. We had one customer once, I mean, this is going back, and when he paid somebody, which was brilliant, on the purchase invoice, he wrote the check number, because it was checks at the time, and the date, which is fine. And then he filed them. And then he asked us to come and do the bookkeeping. So he gave us the check. We said, well, where's the checkbook stubs? He gave us the checkbook stubs. All of them were completely blank because he never wrote on the checkbook stub who he paid because he'd written it on the purchase invoices. So we then had to get all the purchase invoices out and then cross-reference the whole lot because the check stubs were all blank because he didn't bother.
Wow.
So, but that's fine. It's chargeable by the hour, so it costs him more money. It's one of those, isn't it? So,
Sheila, how's bookkeeping sort of evolved over the last, 10 years or so, when so much more is being automated? So how's that changed?
so what's happened now from doing, that's why the accounting support is first. Because before we were just doing the bookkeeping, the piddly bits of paper, and then people would come with them. We'd actually physically be on site and sit and put it all on and everything else. And probably 3 years ago, I might be in the office 1 day a week. Now, I might be out 1 day a week and it feels really odd because it's completely changed. Everything is automated, which is why we're doing more of the hand-holding, that side of things, because there aren't so many people that want us to do, because they literally go, they link it up to the bank account, it all comes down and they go, yeah, which is sometimes where sometimes you have to check, which I've even done, especially when you've got a customer that raises the invoices are all about the same amount of money, and then it comes up, what you miss is that actually what the software thinks this is, they read underneath, and this is 1 of 10. And if you're not careful, you just go, yeah, and then you've actually allocated that somebody's paid you that hasn't. It's another customer that begins with a C and you've missed it. So it's that actually, it's a bit more attention to detail now almost, of just checking what these things are and everything else.
Also believing the software's right, because
And believe the software's right.
Every now and then something will get lost and won't come through.
Yeah.
Like you said, the negative paper, because every now and then technology doesn't quite work.
No. And people just take it that it is 100%. They just trust the whole thing because it's electronic. It's 100%. So that's why we're doing more of that. But we've still got some people that we do everything for that have dyslexic traits or dyscalculia traits. I mean, we've got one. He's a farmer. He's absolutely brilliant. His meat is to die for. Roger's done labels for them, and the thousands of labels that Roger's produced for the Lost Farm is incredible. But there is no computer to be seen. He doesn't really even, he will just have a basic phone and he struggles with that because nothing, it doesn't,
He's a proper farmer.
He's just so dyslexic, it just, nothing makes any sense to him whatsoever. So Sim just comes and she literally will just come with a great big pile of screwed up pieces of paper because it's just like, somebody's come and it's just done. And they've got an agreement with the bank that everything can be done over the phone with the bank manager because there's no point sending him emails because he just can't read them. So it's one of those, got quite a few clients like that where we just do everything for them because the world in their brain doesn't work in that way. So that's what we're finding.